The following program is rated GE. It is suitable for general family viewing.
You know, you don't have to love the person buying your product. You love them because they're buying your product, but they don't have to love you. How have you kept yourself sane? And when do you know also in your business that you're just pushing the wind? You know, you're just, yeah? In my native language, they say, when you're cooling water with water. Have you heard that? Just emptying water from one jug. There's no value being created. They call it Korea Mai. So there's no value you're creating. You're just going around in circles. When do you know? And when your parents ask you, how is it? Hey, it's good, you're working hard. Hey, we are pushing. And that's why very few people are capable when you ask the right question. How is business? We are pushing. But what is pushing? We are working. We are there. What is that? Maybe I'm very curious to hear from you. What do you mean by this for you in a business, consumer business?
So for me, my situation was, I could even have been that gatekeeper because the industry, my industry is what it is. It's very small. It seems large. The numbers are big. But it's very premature still compared to the international world of the beauty industry, right? Mm-hmm. So I could control a lot, right? You know, and it was also, I struck while, what was hot?
Iron was something else.
Right, when people were into, you know, my potential investors would be like, they're not going to buy your product because it's Kenyan. I'm like, they're going to buy it because it's Kenyan. So it was a whole new phase of buy Kenya, build Kenya, buy Africa, build Africa. Uh-huh. So right time. Now, and the consumer was ready to receive. I'd also built a name for myself in the industry, right? Uh-huh. So by the time I was saying, I'm going to make some product for us, and they knew me as a industry person, and they like, okay, whatever she says, let's buy. And by the way, that process that I've just brushed over was a 3-year-long process of creating, saying, I'm going to make my own product for us. To launch was 3 years. And people are like, where is it? Where is it? For 3 years. So by the time I was launching into the market, it was eaten up, right? And then, you had talked about IP. Uh-huh. You know, that's...
Because your business is IP.
Yes. So it's my own, right? Uh-huh. The first thing I do, even Kippy has given me an award. I have like 4 trademarks. Why I managed to sell the business for goodish money is because they bought the trademark.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm. They bought the product and the trademark. If I didn't have the trademark, I'd have got a fraction. Mm-hmm.
So good points.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. I've even trademarked my name.
Susie Beauty.
Susie Wakabi.
Okay.
Because there's people, high-profile people who cannot use their name ever again because they put their name in the business and they can never use it. I won't say the names of the people I know. Uh-huh. So I got...
You can even trademark your name.
Yes.
Okay.
Susie
So maybe I should now
Wakabi has...
trademark Ask Mike.
Exactly.
Okay, but now surely.
It might be too late. You should trademark the name of this
Yeah,
podcast.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, I've lost my train of thought. We were talking about
Trademark.
no. And the how do you know the B2C story? Yeah. And then for me, the consumer has always been ready, willing, able, and open. But now, when I sold the brand, I watched that start to unravel because they thought I'm not a part of it anymore, and so the customer base was very confused and I'd even find in all the shops that after the purchase, my face was pasted in all of them for them to know I'm still here, I'm still the one. So that worked. But through the years, that's also unraveled because they're like, where is she? What happened with that situation, by the way, 5 years, I had a 5-year sign-on with the new owners, and which I wanted so that I could control at least the change management and whatever, and the product. And 5 years came up during COVID, where I knew I wasn't going to continue because there was still the industry's it's still small and there's so much going on, still growing so nicely. There's so many collabos I could not do. People are asking me, can we do this? I can't because I had a non-compete. So I couldn't do anything apart from Susie Beauty in the industry. So those 5 years came up, and that was a very unsad, I'm not going to say happy, unsad divorce on both ends. It's COVID time. They're flailing, struggling with the war and stuff because they import all sorts of raw materials for their other brands. I was in confusion of, no, I can't still just sit here petting Susie Beauty's head, and there's so much more to do in the industry. And so we signed off, both of us, quite happily. I cried tears of happiness. And actually, the director, he asked me, he's like, why are you crying? And he's like, did you feel imprisoned? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I'm so happy to not feel that anymore. I also felt employed, and as an entrepreneur, that's never a good feeling. And then thereafter, everyone's like, do another one, make more, do another brand. Fantastic. So this is where my busyness came in. I'm like, okay, listen to this concept. And it's just fantastic. When my son was 1 is when I launched Susie Beauty. He's now 15, so this is 2 years ago. He's in high school. I'm picking him up from school. I'm watching the girls walk out of class with lip gloss on their lips, their eyebrows are done, their blush on their cheeks. I'm like, why are you wearing makeup? It's 4 p.m. I don't even have makeup on. And they're like, we're allowed, from year 9. I'm like, okay. Also, a lot of my friends have young daughters. Their birthday parties are no longer jumping castles, they're makeup parties and spa parties, right? I'm like, this younger generation, I need to watch them closer. Uh-huh. So when everyone's like, do another one, I'm like, why don't I focus on the younger generation? Second of all, the statistics of our African continent, it's the youngest continent in the world. The average age in Kenya is 19.7. Of course, that's the consumer. What brand should I create? For the Gen Zs and millennials. Perfect. And then good timing. And da-da-da. So that busyness started because I created product. Okay. And then thinking, 13 years of experience, even getting investors will be too easy, right? I mean, who doesn't know Susie Beauty? Susie Beauty's name. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I think I'm still in confusion about why did I do that? But it's not over yet, by the way. It's still there. Her name is SB Dada. I call her just a very naughty girl. SB, Susie Beauty. Dada, younger sister. Yeah, so there I got the financials done, got the right partners, all wrong, by the way. The marketing partners, disasters. My only correct partner is like my sidekick, who's like a finance person. And so I feel like there was so many mistakes I made because of the mentality of, I've done this before. It will be too easy. If I had my initial Susie Beauty creation mentality, I think it would have been easier. But I was like, even when I'm fundraising, I'll do it later because it will be like a few months of process. Until today, it's been 2 years, nothing. So then a lot of busyness, a lot of product created. I've made so many of these products. Okay, who wants them? Okay, we're ready to start fundraising. Okay, nothing is happening, nothing. 2023 was in history like the worst fundraising year. And that's when I was fundraising. Trying to cut down the line, like, I made, 35 SKUs. Let's see what 10 we can produce. Focus groups. Everyone come and see. What can we take off? Nothing. But add these things. Okay, add these other things that let's look for other manufacturers. Everything is still, well, actually, I managed to bring in some stuff. Because even the investor, like PE funds and stuff that people I was talking to, they were like, you can't be in the market looking for money, talking about I'm pre-revenue, like I haven't sold anything yet. You need traction. You're competing with millions of people looking for money every day with 5 years of sales and 8 years of sales and 3 years of sales. Figure it out. So managed to bring in some product. Even that, and had a launch, like that's still, I feel like, a lot of busyness because then, I wanted to, also, part of the brand, listen to all the beautiful steps I had. Younger generation, amazing product. 70% of sales will do online because where does everyone live? On their gadgets. How can I make them be able to buy makeup online? Let's create tech. Let them be able to put the product on and hit buy. Everyone's shopping on Instagram anyway.
You're busy like no nonsense.
Hey. Until I'm even tired thinking of, but like just look at the steps of that concept. Beautiful, right?
Yes.
Still hasn't happened. So much busyness. So that's part 2 of my story, because there's a reason why that is. She's sitting in the naughty corner for a little bit as I'm in my 3rd project, which this one, it's not busyness. But all that busyness, I'm so tired of thinking of all that I did. But imagine, like, that beautiful concept. Doesn't it make all the sense?
I'm laughing because...
You laughed at me.
The makers of the English language were very strange. They made business and busyness sound the same.
Yeah.
So are you in a business or business?
For real.
Business with a Y and an I.
Yes.
It's very different.
Yeah. But you're busy, but business.
Business.
Yeah.
Business.
And that's interesting because that's amazing.
I was busy.
And I'm sure you cannot also add how many other board meetings you had. Okay.
Millions.
And meetings that don't even make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, anything more than an hour is not a meeting anymore.
Yeah, agreed.
Right?
Agreed. And then that's an interesting because I really want to understand part 3. We'll come
Part
to why
3
you,
is important.
I want to understand mentally why you feel you have to do what you have to do. Because maybe it's a mental problem.
So
Maybe
let
it's
me also.
but we'll come to that one.
We'll add to that. So, by the way, I didn't add the part of when I left. When we had the divorce of Susie Beauty, I had a loss of identity for sure. I'm like, what's my name? What's my relevance anymore? So even part of that, let me introduce a new brand and let's do it very quickly and in the smartest way, and so that I can maintain my clout or even for my own self, like self-preservation, self-recreation. It's a new age and a new stage. Even if I'm mourning Susie Beauty because that's not my name anymore, but I'm still being called Susie Beauty. Who am I? Who on earth am I? And da-da-da. So, that was part of this new recreation story.
That's interesting because we'll come to that. And something George said earlier, and we're going to talk about it, is when, as an entrepreneur, you think that when you're on stage, other people are looking at you.
Exactly.
But the reality is nobody's looking at you.
Yes. That was such a good point.
Like, you could remember what he said. And
Yes.
you're thinking, and then maybe you repeat that, George, as we come around to really understanding why we do what we do, because this is understanding why we do. It's a great point you're going to talk because we're on different stages. Susie, you're doing your thing. You think I'm looking at you. I'm not looking at you.
I know.
Like, we're in this topic right now. The time I'm looking at you for the
I
first time.
thought I was being
never thought about
watched
it.
by everyone. I was being watched.
Yeah. But you hope nobody's looking at you. This is the first time maybe where people are going to be looking at you, right?
Yeah.
Other times people never really cared, right? And that also brings me to a very interesting point to Mr. Karaoke.
Yes.
There's something called effort without evidence.
Yes.
You work so hard, you've raised capital, you've built infrastructure, you've hired people, like what you said. But when you turn back and say, my God, do I have anything to show for it?
Yeah.
Jesus. Do you have anything to show for what I've done? I'd like you to talk to you what happens when you have nothing to show? And despite investing so much, because when I look at your story, and I think you can, because I know your beat, you can talk about the effort, the amount of investment you did to one day turn around and realize, my God, 37 years of my life gone.
Yeah.
And I have nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
And what happens to you when you get to that point?
Yeah. I think nothing to show for it will be a good thing. If I left with no money, I'd have been a happier person. I left with debt. So when you're leaving, you're not like, okay.
So you have something to show for it, but negative.
Negative. So you're like, okay, if I just sat at home and did nothing, I'd be better off than I am now. But the thing is, I've learned a lot over the years. One of the key things I've learned is that situations are what you make them. And so, this, I forget the exact name of the theory, but it's like you're late for the bus in the morning, you think it's a horrible thing, but the bus you are supposed to get in rolls and everyone dies, and so your life is saved. It's kind of how I look at my life in a very weird way. Because it took a lot of introspection to realize that many of the situations I found myself in were poison chalices. So the nature of the business from when I joined it was flawed. I'd either made a mistake in regards to how the company is structured or who had given what or who I'd partnered with, which is fine. The thing is, though, I've never made a mistake I've not paid for. And so for a very long time, I felt like the world was unfair to me. And I'd ask myself, okay, what's going on? Like, I know other people who made similar mistakes. I'm not the first, I was never the first person to raise capital. People who raised capital with very friendly investors whose objective was to enable them to do their jobs and not to sort of punish them. There are people who started businesses with partners who No, I'm not looking to break the law to get an upper hand. But I felt, so at some point I had like this almost, wallowing, oh, woe is me, oh, things are bad. But there's something about life. It marches on. It's indifferent. And when you start sort of looking at the arc of history, you realize exactly how insignificant you are. I know it's a bit of a dark way to look at it, but, to quote what is a controversial topic, but Anne Frank died. Like, that was it. We have a bunch of people who fought for independence. Dedan Kimathi still is in an unmarked grave 60 plus years later. It is because of him that we are here. And that ended and life moved on. So it's, unless you're considered, then that's when you think that you should never encounter hardship. And, if you do X, like life is formulaic. If I put in 3 hours into entrepreneurship, my income will go up by 3,000 shillings a day. Like, that's not how it works. And so if you realize that, okay, fine, tough things happen, they will break you. But now what do you do next? So now you're forced to look at the lessons you've learned. And over the years, the lessons I learned were very counter to what many people expected me to learn. And the biggest lesson I learned was when my second last startup sort of ended. What I learned was relationships matter more than people think. Mm-hmm. And so we were being given a not insignificant amount of money by a not insignificant company. And, things start going sideways. And what I did is I killed the deal. I was like, look, if this thing collapses now, I will no longer have a reputation. So I'll still be poor. I'll still be in debt. But I also won't have a reputation. And so I pulled the plug. And to date, by the way, even for the next projects I'm working on, those same individuals are involved. Maintain the relationship. But the most important thing I learned is everyone thinks they're a hero in their own story. When you're seated here, at the back of your mind, all your friends are thinking about you, and they're like, oh my God, what's happening with this person? And they're all gossiping. I came to realize, like, life moves on and no one cares. Like, when I find myself being forced to rehash the story, because literally people have not thought about that particular situation in years. I never even thought about what I was doing. Because everyone has their own problems. Everyone has a mortgage. They have a wife. They have children. And for them, those problems are existential. So it is also very conceited to be sitting here thinking, oh, my friends are all worried about what's going on. No. They have bills. They have fees. Like, life is happening. And again, life is indifferent. So you kind of have to be very dispassionate about your situation in life and the way you're looking at the world to survive these things. Because if you think that you're exceptional, even if you are, it does not guarantee a good outcome. And there's so many stories to be told. One that sticks out to me is Steve Jobs, one of the most intelligent people on the planet. He arguably passed away because he refused to get the right care early enough. Like, people had found out that he had cancer, but his entire life, like, sort of, the rules had not applied. And as an older individual, he'd not sort of unlearned that. And so people are telling him, go get cure, and then he starts looking for herbal and alternative medication. Cancer gets aggressive. He passes away. And he ultimately paid for that judgment decision with his life. The thing is, that was a very visible example. We individually make the same mistake over and over. Whether it's remaining in a business you should not be in, or in a job you should not be in. But you're kind of looking at the sunk cost and, oh, this is my reputation, this is how people perceive me. But there's liberty in being anonymous. If nobody knew who you are and what you profess to know and your reputation, what course of action will you take? Because we are very good at giving advice. When I look at anyone's life, I'll be like, oh, this person should not have done this, should not have done that, da, da, da. But you always discount the emotion that and the exact situation somebody is in. And my argument is we should do the counter. When looking inwards, we should be a bit harsher and be like, okay, somebody else will not forgive this or that or the other because they wouldn't have access to this information. But when you're looking at others, be a bit more compassionate. I don't know what pain they're going through. I don't know what their story is from childhood. I don't know what is guiding them. And that sort of manages your psychology because on one hand, you're trying to, I'm not saying that you just criticize yourself and say that that's negative self-esteem. That's a whole other thing. But you realize that at some point, the world is not bothered as much about you as you think. And so you take the time to make the best decision for you without accounting for third-party input. And then also when you look at other people in similar situations, you don't be harsh because you realize that there's a part of their story you do not understand. And be kinder to them because chances are, if you found out why they did what they did, you would be with them. And like I'll give a personal example. I had some arguments with my father over time. He was born in the 40s. Some time back, I took the time to understand his life. And when I did that, I was the answer to the question, if I was him, would I have been where he is, was no. To date, I do not understand how he made it out of that situation. But without that context, it is very easy for me to criticize and say, But if you look inwardly at the same time and say, I have these opportunities and other people do not see the opportunities and the gifts, how do I make use of them? You will find a way to claw out. And so when I looked at my situation, having lost, at the point, thinking I've lost everything, I realized I have the knowledge from the situation. I understand the products, I understand the market. And the second last startup in particular gave me a fairly global network. And I realized that this is objectively true. I have one of the widest networks nationally or globally. Why am I struggling? And I have this gift presented to me. And why don't I now take the gifts that have been given to me to determine the rest of my life? And once I did that, it became easier to get out of the funk.
Wow, interesting. Oh my God, it's really, really good points. I was just pondering as you're speaking and really realizing we are sometimes harsh to people who don't know their journeys. Yeah. And sometimes getting somebody out of that loop, maybe it's not your story to get them out of the loop. They need to want to get out of that loop. And you can't force them. You can't boot them out of that. You can't do what we call a forced software update of this person. They have refused to get out of it. And God forbid you're in a marriage and the founder has refused to eject from a situation. That also can even cost your marriage, I would assume, in many cases. We're going to come to that conversation one of these days. But coming back to this conversation now, we wanted to explore critically in our thinking why we are where we are. Why do we find ourselves in this loop? And I'm going to start this conversation in a very interesting way. Look at macro issues. We, in the last 4 years, have become a hustler nation. Tuamka asubuhi tukasema, tukue hustler nation. See, hustle. Hustle has become part of life. Your typical Kenyan, by 6 o'clock, if they're not up in the streets, even if they don't know what they're going to do, they're on the street. Is that correct? Where they don't know where they're going to make money, they don't have a clue, many Kenyans will be on the street. Because the moment you're sleeping, you know it's death. So we are a hustler nation. And then hustler culture that has come into it. Sometimes I'm not sure if that's hustler nation. I have neither here or there in terms of our conversation, but as a hustler nation, we need to be in the grind. And that's maybe why Kenya is known to be extremely hardworking. But sometimes I think it's like a pyramid scheme. Yeah?
It is.
It's like a pyramid scheme. Because I know you will wake up. Me, I know I'll wake up. So we constantly know in one day we'll get there. But then there are people who take advantage knowing you'll wake up and I'll wake up. Is that correct? If I know you won't show up, I'll just tell you, fire you and hire the next guy. If I know you cannot supply, I'll delay your payments because the next guy will fit in. So you realize the whole system now starts working against itself. Because you know you won't show up, another guy will. We don't start and say, no, since you're not paying us, we're not all going to. You will still find as a team of people. If you guys revolt and say we're not going to do, there's one guy who will go behind the back and say, Mintafanya. You see, then you see it's a hustler ecosystem, or what we call a continuous loop of bad behavior. So we are constantly in that loop. So we need to start interrogating these conversations. Why are we now, intelligently, we start ask ourselves, why are we where we are? Recently, I was trying to work with smaller companies, and I was trying to introduce them. Like, part of them I'm consulting in this project I'm doing, trying to tell them, come and do some work for us. And I told them, guys, come on. You can use AI to do what you're trying to do for me. Can you please? The CEO told me, no. AI, as we've been doing like this all the time, this is the way it is. Hey, I said, my friend, stop jokes. Okay? We can use AI. They totally shut me up. I even told them, okay, fine, let my son try and do this job. My son ended up doing 14, 15-year-old, doing some work that a corporate would have done, but now all of a sudden I said AI is available. So in the age of AI, what's going to happen to people who are not accepting or willing to unlearn? Yeah. That's number one. And it's a question I want us to answer a little bit. What's going to happen in the age of AI? And then number two, just to guide our conversations, is to say, why does the myth of a hustling founder remain so attractive in an African entrepreneurship space? Okay. Why is it? Is it a mental? Is it an operation? Is it something that you feel? Is it you're told, amuka uende kazi? Enda shule amuka uende kazi? Is that what is driving us? Just I want you to think about it. And when does the hustle become a mark? When does the hustle become almost like it's your identity? Because if you say, what are you doing tomorrow? And you cannot be able to explain, then you lose your identity, as what Suzy said. You don't know who you are anymore. If you wake up and tell people I do nothing, even at table they'll ask you, hey, this one, is he Amkora? Is he Onomo? Okay? Then are we as entrepreneurs, as founders, addicted to being needed? Are you addicted to be wanted? Can you be able to pull, because that's also part of why we're unable to delegate. So you're busy. The day one day you wake up and nobody's calling you and your whole ecosystem is working, do you feel lonely? Does loneliness bug you as an entrepreneur? Just to think about it. And then I also talked about, when do you distinguish between grit and grind? You know, grit and grind are two different things. Is that correct?
Most leadership programs are built for stable systems, clear rules, predictable institutions, high trust.
What are high trust environments? It's a handshake, it's a table.
But that's not the terrain most leaders are operating in. Here, trust is fragile.
We cannot accept this brand because it doesn't have the word insurance.
Power moves informally, institutions are uneven, capital is asymmetrical. And growth, succession, or visibility doesn't always reduce risk. Sometimes it increases it. In these environments, leadership failure rarely comes from lack of intelligence or effort. It comes from poor judgment under pressure. When the terrain is misread, even capable leaders make costly, irreversible decisions, not because they are weak, but because the system they are operating from is incomplete. The African Founder Operation System, AFOS, was built for this reality. AFOS is not a course, it is an operating system for leadership under pressure. It is designed to help leaders think clearly, decide deliberately, and act with integrity.
The genesis of this conversation is around understanding what keeps founders breathing and moving and not giving up.
When the environment itself is unstable,
Discover the world. How it was. How it is. How it will be. Around you. Discover the world around you with us.
Ingia mwaka mpya wa 2026 in style na Daka. Jishindie mara 5,000 ya bet yako kila dakika 20. Draw zinafanywa mara 3 kila saa, mara 72 kila siku. Shinda instant cash na bidhaa murwa kama fridge, cooker, car wash machine, popcorn maker, blender, microwave, home makeover na shopping vouchers. Unaweza kuwa milionea kila dakika 20. Ni rahisi sana. Ingia kwa M-Pesa, weka paybill number 440440, account Daka. Amount weka shilingi 20 hadi shilingi 2,000. Happy New Year. Win big na Daka.
Equip Africa Institute, the TVET arm of Mount Kenya University, is where dreams take shape. We prepare you through competitive, market-driven programs which include medical and health sciences, hospitality, tourism and travel, journalism, IT, engineering, marine studies and driving. With entry grades from C and below, your journey begins in our Thika, Kitale, Nakuru, Malindi, Kisii and Nairobi campuses. Equip Africa Institute, promoting competence, innovation, and excellence.
Most leadership programs are built for stable systems, clear rules, predictable institutions, high trust.
What are high trust environments? It's a handshake, it's a table.
But that's not the terrain most leaders are operating in. Here, trust is fragile.
We cannot accept this brand because it doesn't have the word insurance.
Power moves informally, institutions are uneven, capital is asymmetrical. And growth, succession, or visibility doesn't always reduce risk, sometimes it increases it. In these environments, leadership failure rarely comes from lack of intelligence or effort. It comes from poor judgment under pressure. When the terrain is misread, even capable leaders make costly, irreversible decisions not because they are weak, but because the system they are operating from is incomplete. The African Founder Operation System, AFOS, was built for this reality. AFOS is not a course, it is an operating system for leadership under pressure. It is designed to help leaders think clearly, decide deliberately, and act with integrity.
The genesis of this conversation is around understanding what keeps founders breathing and moving and not giving up.
When the environment itself is unstable,
how many of us as entrepreneurs do we admit we are exhausted? This is nonsense. This I do not do anymore, to be honest. I sell airtime every day. I cannot wake up another day and sell airtime. Man, this is not me. I'm not cut for this. Is that correct? And what does working smart for you mean today? So I don't know. I've thrown many questions out there, but that's why I want us to sort of discuss without any order. Whichever of those questions grabbed your mind, because it's also challenging my audience to say, like surely, why am I doing what I'm not doing? Am I increasing my mental capability? Can this be driven by AI, for instance? Yeah. Am I addicted to being wanted in the business?
Yeah.
Yeah. So over to you guys. You guys can do any random manner.
You need to give us notebooks. This Swahili. This guy has read. Let me just tell you. That guy has
Many books.
as we have been there in that selling airtime. So, and this is really what attracted me to come to have this conversation today. First, just to recap on what I said, and what we had talked earlier, what I said is that the problem of entrepreneurship is that it has been sexied so much that it's actually cool to call yourself a founder and entrepreneur and CEO. But to be honest, it's the worst job on earth. Like, it's the hardest thing to do. Like, you imagine you're entering something which statistically only 1% of people ever make it out. Like, really, this is how is that glamorous? and what is that? Because they are made it to look like that, then, and you get the high of your first sale, or the high of your projections, you imagine there's an audience cheering. And usually you post, everyone there says, oh, great, good job, great job. Let me tell you, no one who has ever bought from you was there posting. The guys who post have no intention of buying from you. So you imagine there's an audience. And so so what you think is, and I'll give an example. Because we're here because we're entrepreneurs, and let me talk about one of my children. This one, and I tell you, so the idea of entrepreneurship is the idea to stop working. We have to say that. You're starting business so that you don't work. You don't start business so that you work harder. You work business so that it works for you and gives you money and you don't work. A successful entrepreneur should be here in this club every day doing nothing. So how is it that we think entrepreneurship is working harder? The idea is that you have an idea, you apply HR, capital, partners to it, and you turn it into a self-revolving machine which churns out money. That's the idea of business. Business is not about working hard. So now in Kenya, we've gotten to the idea that business is about chasing, working, like if you ask people, hey, maze, kuskuma tu, pushing. And you ask someone 20 years later, like if it was working hard, maize farmers would be the richest people. Those guys have put those seeds in the ground for the last 30 years. Grows. It's like an infinite loop. And if you don't get that, like every day you're working, you should work harder so that you stop working. Because work never ends. It's just that you're figuring, I'm going to create a process that works without me. Now, let me tell you, so we went, and I was giving you a story when we were having tea. And so my delusion was innovating, seeing opportunities for people who have not seen. So I've looked at you, Mike. I've realized the biggest problem here is that people don't have somewhere to put their shoes when they come. So I go, without asking you, I create a machine which removes your shoes when you come for this talk, and it polishes them and it massages your feet. Then I do prototype, I do design, I come, I tell you, Mike, there's a machine here for removing shoes. And you look at me, why would I need a machine for removing shoes? And then I think the problem is that I've not added enough features to convince you. So I go, I innovate. It has Bluetooth. You can instruct it with the Bluetooth. Like Delulu. So if you ask me, I'm working very hard to solve a problem which is in my head. And if you ask most entrepreneurs, and they launch that machine, the shoe removing machine. There's a big launch. They do a Facebook page, Instagram page. They even hire a CTO, a CEO. Shoe removing machine. I once built a shoe removing machine. Now let me tell you. We built a shoe removing machine.
You did?
Yes. So it's an analogy for the business.
Why did you build a chapati maker?
There's demand for a million a day.
So what we had seen, and let me tell you, and as well as give you a story. So at the time, I think some time ago, there were two instances. Cars were being stolen from car hire companies. And so we came up with a way where the guy and what they would do is that they would give you fake IDs and fake DLs. So we bumped into some system that was doing digital verification. So we told the guys, for 200 bob, If you grab the ID, it verifies whether it's a legit ID, then you can give him the car. So you'll make money. In fact, pass the cost to him. So I sat and I thought, that's brilliant. We were buying the verifications for, I think, 10 bob. We were selling them 200 bob. Like, shoe machine. So we did, set up the system, bought the credits, everything, launched. In fact, put an office with a very fancy, a big fancy sign. Near State House Road. And launched. And I put carpet like this one. In the office. Nice. CEO's office in the corner. Shoe removing machine. Launched. Listen, the way cars are hired in this country, they're hired through brokers. They're not hired, it's not it's not owner interaction. So the broker takes the car, he gives the car to another guy. There's nowhere they are sharing IDs or all these other things. So, and then the broker doesn't want the car owner to meet the customer. Because the first thing the car owner does is text that guy and they remove the owner's commission. Like our culture is the problem.
Disintermediate your...
Yes, immediately.
Great rate.
So your system was exposing this guy to this guy. So what did the brokers do? They killed it. So my shoe removing machine.
In the office.
And the office and the carpet. And the credits. We bought credits in millions. Because we went, it was going to work. And then we took that, so we had credit. So we said, the next people were going to, at the time there was femicides happening. Girls were dying in Roysambu somewhere. And Nigerians were put them in suitcases. So we said, that same thing, why don't we verify who is entering an Airbnb? And we met the government officials, we met the people who license Airbnbs, we met everyone, and we said, now we're going to launch it as national policy. When you're entering an Airbnb, you show your whatever, it enters our system, it swaps, we run our credits, make money. I did the number of, again, went to that Delulu tool called Excel. How many Airbnbs? 200 bob, drag down, George, you are rich. Let me tell you. There's not a single Airbnb owner who doesn't know that Airbnbs are not accommodation centers. They are used for other things. The people who go there are not going there to sleep. They are going to do other things. So, so when you bring legitimization of the ID, you're killing the core business. So every Airbnb owner says, but my customer said, "Hey, mnataka kutujua." Kwa nini? Because you do not want to know who was in that room. It's so, and this is the problem. Like I said, you can see working. So when you look at that scenario of what we are doing, working very hard. We're working. If you ask me, we were launching, we were innovating, we had structure, we had carpet. There's nothing we didn't have. But we've not gone and figured who told us this is a problem. Who is this who came to us and said, me, I'm struggling with renting my car? But all we did, we saw a scenario and assumed it and did not validate it. So if you ask most Kenyans, what happens is that everyone is in this loop of solving problems that they are seeing that they have not been told. And the worst thing now where you have to double work is that, and Susie will tell you and Kariuki will tell you, the challenge of before the product takes off, there are some 6-12 months here. What are you eating? So you can't innovate on hunger. So what happens is that most people are busy building the shoe removing machine, and in the meantime, having a night job, selling airtime, so that they can eat while supporting this Delulu dream to take off. So the burnout comes is that most Kenyans are working 2 jobs because they can't raise capital until there's POC. So he has to feed the family, or he or she has to feed the family. They have a job for that. Then they have this other layer on top where they are building for something that doesn't exist. Now, if you ask most entrepreneurs, the burnout and the chaos, and all it would take is to sit before you start validate. But why don't we validate? We are so scared that if I tell you that I'm going to charge 200 bob on a cost of 10 shillings, you will take my idea charge 100 and rent. So who do I tell? No one. In fact, I'm in the office, even watches have NDAs. There is no one who I'm thinking everyone is coming to steal my shoe removing machine. She's going nowhere. So and you see the cycle continues. And so when the shoe removing machine, now you start with a hat removing machine, and you never. And then so if you look at most of us, you always a founder, a CEO of something. But in the meantime, on the side, how he survives, he has an M-Pesa shop, he has a couple of Ubers, and that is what is feeding him. Maybe if he focused on the M-Pesa shops, he will scale. Like and if you really, really talk to most entrepreneurs, what they can tell you is that what keeps them going is the projections they drew for the shoe removing machine. But what is keeping them alive is what they do, consultancy. Like this great team you have here, if they really excelled at what they did, they can host many whatevers. But if he's seated here and on the side, he's the guy selling potatoes from Kinangop to Nairobi, there is no way he's going to focus on doing this production. And that is where we have a struggle. But then somebody says, but since the camera work has not picked up, what will I be eating? So you see how this infinite loop comes in the market. And so it's to sit and, before you start business, and that's why I'm saying the hustle delusion, there's some blind faith that is required. But what I've found is that it's very hard to copy a business. Mike, even if you gave me all your clients and all your employees and your offices, I would never rebuild 7 Seas. Even if you give me your notes. Even if you are my consultant, I can't. And I think that's where we go wrong. We think that everyone is seeing the opportunity the same way. It's like somebody assuming that if they go and tell my girlfriend the same sentences I told her, she will marry them. It doesn't work like that. There is a way it has to be delivered. This is not high. You know, there's high and high. Then there's high. They are different. So stop being so afraid that your business, I should have gone with the business and sat and told the Airbnb owners, let me talk to 10. Would you pay for this? Let me talk to the car hire people. Would you buy this? And if 9 say no, I don't say, why are you not seeing? That is the problem. That is, nyinyi ndio wajinga. They have been doing this all their lives, and I'm calling them silly. Me who has never rented a car out. I'm the one who knows, but I'm telling them, you guys cannot see. You need, and don't be so scared if they're going to, I know I'm taking time, so I'll rush on this one. When I saw this video, this lady explaining how in a supermarket, when you walk into the water aisle, there are rows and rows and rows of brands of water. What is the content? Water. What is the difference? Branding. But it's water. And priced differently. And every of those brands sells out. There's always a stock out. Water. And water is water. In fact, water is free. It comes out in a tap. But still, if you understand that, then there's an infinite possibilities. There can be 2 7 Cs. But the fact that I start at 7 Cs, that company was called Verify. The start that I started Verify doesn't mean there's no space for another Verify. There's space for water. Just carve out your small group, niche it out, execute. You don't need, look, if you're making 200 bob a transaction, you don't need 10,000 people transacting an hour. You don't need to go into telco scale. You just need to leave a very decent turnaround profit. You just need a couple of, say, 1,000 people. They're running a day. And you've made a tidy sum where no one knows you. You only have 1,000 customers who you obsess over. You're making your turnover of 190 a day. You live a very good life after you pay your taxes. Who will not survive nicely on 3 million? We don't look at it. We want loud businesses. We want, so I want to take over the whole Airbnb industry. I need 100,000 customers. No, maybe I could just survive on 1,000. It's that realization that somebody said the people who really, really enjoy are the people with I mean, there are different schools of thought, but I believe in that school of thought. The people who end up with like a team of 6 and a $3 to $4 million turnover. Those are the guys enjoying business. This, Mike, you had how many employees? 800?
Many.
Is it like 800 employees? 6 floors.
200.
Too many.
Many, you go there.
But you're right. My life was amazing when I had 20, 30.
Yes. When
revenue was just 20 million.
It's nice.
You're undercover, nobody's asking,
Yes.
nobody's just giving you. But then that also, and I want you to, we're going to come back to that question, because you just said something that's very interesting. Are we overeducated? Do you think when you over-engineer your brain through too much knowledge, you become a liability to yourself? Because some of the great businesses were built by people who, in Kenya, think about it, 2 things. We have a winner-takes-all attitude. If you look at our telco industry, it's one telco that owns 70% of the market. It is in most of our industries. It's one person. You go to a brewing business, winner takes all. You go to our eatery businesses, who is the biggest? You find it's one guy who owns half there. So do you think that, again, you look at politically, it's also winner takes everything. Do you think it's a cultural problem as a country, that it's a winner take all? Then everybody else is sort of just coasting along? Number 2 is our education system is such that it's not built in a way that it helps us be able to have more clarity of thought in terms of where we are. Because you could find a guy who never even reached Form 2. He's going to ask himself more critical questions than you. But because you're over-engineered, even going to mess it up. Is that correct?
Yes.
And maybe now with AI, it's even going to become worse. Okay. Maybe. I don't even know what's going to happen, because most of us are going to be jumping and doing everything. So those are 2 things. And then I'm also thinking at political moments when we've had leaders who have come in and just made things work. Michuki, for instance, the whole thing of safety belt. Just think about it, how complex it was to change a whole industry. There is no other person who has come and managed in a very short period of time to do that kind of, that level of translation. In terms of people agreeing, it's a safety issue for me. We need to have safety belts. Because think about it, Matatus never had safety belts. You had to create an industry to build safety belts. You had to get people to agree to be in a Matatu and put safety belts. So what is lacking at a leadership problem, at a leadership level, to want, because I think there's a lot of working hard. We launch stuff, we are busy people, human beings. Why are we not moving at the velocity we should move? Because you could move a lot, but you're not making leaps. It depends on the gear. So we want to be Singapore, but definitely Singapore must have made certain very smart decisions. China 40 years ago was very different. Today, China, you think, my God, did they cycle so hard to get there, or did they cycle smart? What is it?
So
Smart, of course.
I have thoughts about what you've brought up, and they're not like direct thoughts. But one of the key things is I recently saw a post online commenting on funding in Africa. And you could sort of see the surges in foreign funding into African startups when the funding went up and the funding went down. And there's an aphorism that when the tide goes out, you know who was swimming naked. And the challenge with that particular problem is we are downstream from US Fed policy. So when the US government decides that, the economy is doing badly and it reduces interest rates, money floods, money looks for opportunities, it comes here. And many entrepreneurs in this part of the world thought they were clever. And so they were very excited. And they raised all this money and never bothered worrying about P&L. And then inflation hits up. COVID happens, inflation hits up, interest rates rise. Money dries up, the entrepreneurs suddenly cannot raise more money, the businesses collapse. I use that analogy primarily because at times in our ecosystem, in Kenya, we are swimming against impossible waters. So there's a book by Hernando de Soto Polar that I keep recommending to people, which is The Mystery of Capital. And this is an economist who took his time and actually tried to run a business in, I think it is Peru. I believe he's Peruvian. And this book that he wrote formed the basis for the World Bank Doing Business report. In Kenya, we take that book and implement it but we completely soil the spirit while implementing the latter. Why do I bring this up? If you started a business or even bought a house or invested in real estate between the year 2001 and 2010, you thought you were a genius. Things worked. Real estate was affordable and it was accelerating in value. Land in Upper Hill in the year 2000 was what, 10 million shillings an acre? It's now, or 20 million shillings, it's now 500 million shillings an acre. So if you had 20 million shillings then and you took a mortgage and you bought 2 acres, you're now a billionaire. You never did anything. It's sort of like you are carried by the market. So we tend to forget or disregard the headwinds, the tailwinds we face. And we tend to overemphasize the headwinds we face. And so why am I saying this? We are currently in a country where you have no regulatory stability. How to file your taxes changes literally every April when the finance bill comes out. So if I'm looking to raise capital, for instance, let's use the ISP space as an example, how excise duty is being handled has just changed because KRA has interpreted it one way. How corporate tax is filed has changed. So even like planning your business is difficult. So you have this environment where it is difficult to plan your business, it is difficult to run your business, it is difficult to own your business. And people collapse. And it is very easy, and that's why I was saying earlier, we need to be harsher with ourselves and kinder to other people. It is very easy for us to say people are copycats. But again, Kenya is a Toyota market. Why? We have potholes in our roads. We have frivolous mechanics. When you see people behave a certain way, that is information. It doesn't mean that they're insane. The market has sent information, and this information is that if you're in Kenya, you cannot have a car with low-profile tires, you cannot have a car with stiff suspension, you cannot have a car that's expensive to maintain, and you have to have a car that can deal with abuse from like bad fuel, etc., etc., etc. That's a signal. And what we are seeing with entrepreneurs struggling is an environment. Because when you remove Kenyans from here and put them in the US, they're one of the highest educated, highest earning people in the US, outperforming Nigerians, outperforming almost everyone apart from, I believe, people from the Indian subcontinent. So objectively, we are some of the hardest working, most intelligent people. We are being failed by systemic government operational issues, which impoverish all of us. And what is happening is many people now start thinking that there's a problem with entrepreneurs. As a very simple example, the last IPO was in the Kibaki era. I think, 2015. There was a single one. But between 2002 and 2013, there was a time everyone thought they were a genius at stock market investing. Where are those geniuses now? Like, it's the same market. But the market has been losing value from 2013 to 2025. If you are so good at this investing, show us the returns. And there is an aphorism, like I am a huge Buffett manga, and what they said was, if you get 1,000 people, or let's say 4,000 people, and you told them to choose heads or tails, first iteration, 4,000 people, 2,000 people will get heads correct. And when you ask those 2,000 people to gamble again, half of them will get it correct. And effectively, you have people who think, you have a shrinking number of people, but who every time this gambling thing happens, because it's 50-50 odds, 50% will get it right on the first iteration, so that you're left with 2,000, then another 1,000, then 500. There are people who will have gotten it right all through and will genuinely think they're geniuses and that they know how to predict when you toss a coin. But it's chance. But you've not taken time to think about what you're doing. Like, the metacognition is fairly poor in society in general. And so you kind of need to have people look at this. I'm saying we need to be kinder to entrepreneurs because we're in this environment where nothing is predictable. You cannot depend on government. Contracts are not enforceable. And as a result, tax policy is a bit harsh. So the amount of money in the economy has gone back down to 2001 levels. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you have to hustle. It's that your work, you're being choked by an environment around you. And the way to think about it, another frame of reference you can use is it's impossible to grow flowers in the desert. And it's impossible to hunt polar bear in the Sahara. Like, there are things you cannot do when the environment does not allow you to do them. If you want to catch seals and polar bear, go to the North Pole. If you want to catch camels, go to the Sahara. But we are in an environment that is actively hostile to entrepreneurs. And the way that comes out is many people are forced to, because they have a dream, they have an objective, and that's admirable. They are forced to do what they need to do to keep this thing alive. And it is fair for them to do that. But we look at it from this other perspective where we discount their passion and the need to do this thing and achieve this thing, and discount the emotional, the contextual environments they're in. But the reality of the matter is, if we give the country a friendlier environment, there's data. You look at Singapore, you look at China, deregulation was the biggest thing. They made it easier and more predictable to do business. And what that did is it brought in capital. So then you stop having these arguments for what do you need to do to raise capital. Because when capital is very scarce as it is in this part of the world, which is abnormal, you can be dismissed for not having the right smile or not having combed your hair before the meeting. Like, there are so many entrepreneurs, and the investors know they'll get a good return, that they just use whatever frivolous mechanisms exist to dismiss you. But again, I take you back to the Kibaki years. We were used to, in the 90s, for those who can remember, I remember trying to open a bank account, and the banks kicked me out. You'd go and they're like, who are you? Yeah. I remember even we were both in Strathmore. You'd pay fees in the Barclays Bank in Lavington. Barclays Bank woke up one day and decided Lavington and DBC Place branches, they no longer wanted them. So the account was moved to Hurlingham. And they just closed it. They didn't want to talk to us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they do that. Like, the banks would actively just close branches because they were like, you people are your income is not enough to justify a branch in that area. But remember, this is ABC Place, this is Lavington. Shortly after, I was trying to open a bank account. KCB pushed me out. I'd go to these banks. Like, you'd go and beg them to give them money. Equity came along and made it easier. But I've digressed. We moved from that period to when you'd go to a mall and somebody's giving you a credit card, to when they were hawking bank accounts and hawking debt because the economy was doing well and there was plenty of money to lend and everyone could buy land and everyone could buy a house and everyone could get a loan for their business. And suddenly, everyone thought they were clever. So I'm not saying that people are stupid. I'm saying in Kenya, we're in a unique position where it is very difficult to distinguish between what you as a founder are doing wrong and what is a byproduct of industry being killed by government. Because this government woke up the other day and said, you cannot sell, I think it was cashew nuts or macadamia nuts. Mm-hmm. They banned the export. Mm-hmm. If you think about how cruel that is as an action, it takes months to get that yield. And then you've suddenly wiped out some farmers' income. And so the farmer will learn from that and only do what they see other people doing and not try and innovate. So in my view, it's a complicated issue. We have systemic issues in government, but at the same time, we need to be able to dispassionately look at the business models we are talking about, like the shoe thing you're talking about. You need to be able to dispassionately look at it, but do not discount the fact that there is a world in which, for the Airbnbs that did not want to be in this malarkey of having people dying in their rooms, they would have wanted a secure environment, and we do not have enough of a legitimate market, which if we were a larger market would have been there, and the business would have worked.
Wow, interesting, because it gets me thinking as we go to even Suzie and any other person with, any of you with comments. I feel you've talked about two things. You've talked about when all of us started business, 2003, those years, and we are where we are. I feel part of being in the loop and being busy is having two mindsets, a transactional mindset and a visionary mindset. I feel right now, as individuals, as entrepreneurs, we've become extremely transactional. Well, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next month. You just live for the month. It's very transactional. You just hope month end comes. I don't know if of late you feel a month is coming to an end, you just say, my God, let it just come to an end. A year is coming to an end, you just say, hey, wacha hiki tuishe. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think there was those moments I would say, my God, in 3 years I'm going to be in the stock market. I remember going to the stock market and telling my shareholders, 2016 we have to list this company. Now I can't even remember even dreaming that I can't even have that conversation because I know it's not possible. It's not because we're not computer. I just know there's too much chaos to get there, right?
Most leadership programs are built for stable systems, clear rules, predictable institutions, high trust.
What are high trust environments? It's a handshake, it's a table.
But that's not the terrain most leaders are operating in. Here, trust is fragile.
We cannot accept this brand because it doesn't have the word insurance.
Power moves informally, institutions are uneven, capital is asymmetrical. And growth, succession, or visibility doesn't always reduce risk, sometimes it increases it. In these environments, leadership failure rarely comes from lack of intelligence or effort. It comes from poor judgment under pressure. When the terrain is misread, even capable leaders make costly, irreversible decisions not because they are weak, but because the system they are operating from is incomplete. The African Founder Operation System, AFOS, was built for this reality. AFOS is not a course, it is an operating system for leadership under pressure. It is designed to help leaders think clearly, decide deliberately, and act with integrity.
The genesis of this conversation is around understanding what keeps founders breathing and moving and not giving up.
When the environment itself is unstable, we value your feedback. If you would like to send questions, comments, suggestions, or complaints for any of our programs, call us by telephone number 0740-047-047 or email us at info@capemedia.co.ke. You can also write to us at PO Box 599 00606, Sarit Center, Nairobi, or you can reach us on any of our social media platforms, X at TV4